Hey, welcome everyone. This is Eric here. This is our weekly session. So it's not a live session. It's a pre-recorded session because I had so many problems with Instagram lately that I decided to pre-record the session. So it's the weekly session where we talk about relationship, healing, and self-empowerment. And it's going to be every week. I'm going to post that on my social media. So before I start to introduce my guest today, I just want to remind you that what I believe is the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship you have. And this is one of the core value of my work. So today I have a special guest, and it's Jeannette Hill. Hi, Jeannette.
Hi, Eric.
It's great to have you with me.
Thank you for inviting me today.
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to do a proper introduction. So Jeannette Hill is an intuitive guide and medium who connects to spirit in her readings and coaching, guiding people in gaining clarity about their soul's purpose and teaching spiritual development. She has a master's degree in Transpersonal Psychology and certification in life coaching and hypnotherapy. Did I miss something, Jeannette?
No, you haven't. That's
okay,
good.
Do you want to add anything about around that, or we can just jump into the conversation?
We can just jump in if you'd like.
Okay, great. So the first question that I always love to ask is, how did you come to do the work you do right now?
Well, I came to do the work actually when I was in graduate school getting my psychology degree. I found out that I had these intuitive, some would call psychic ability. Mm-hmm. And so I really had to decide, am I going to be a therapist or am I going to go on this more alternative path? And I really didn't feel the pull to be a therapist. And so on the side, while I was getting my degree, I would take classes in intuition development. Mm-hmm. And then for electives, I was always taking classes in like mysticism, Eastern meditation, expressive arts. I was always really drawn to the mystical, spiritual healing. Mm-hmm. And so what happened is right after graduation, or really close to graduation, I also simultaneously started doing a hypnotherapy certification and doing understanding how to communicate with the angels, how to do angel readings, and then a life coaching certification. So it all started to kind of come together that last year of my graduate school. Mm-hmm. And then I literally started, the very next year, I started doing what I called the angel readings at the time. And so I did those professionally, started in 2004, and then started doing coaching about 5 or 6 years ago. And then I started doing mediumship and developing the mediumship as well.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So you do combine a lot of different skills at the same time, right?
I do combine a lot, because what happens with what I do really is I connect with spirit. When by that I mean the soul of the client, and I use my intuitive abilities to connect with the spiritual guides. And what happens is messages will come through from spirit, and then in this session, and especially when I get to the coaching, that's where all the other modalities I've learned different types of energy therapy too, really help people with the guidance that comes through actually get to the point where they can follow through and really take the steps to make that vision or the guidance that's come through be realized in their lives. Because a lot of people need support or need some more additional, like step-by-step help to kind of get to that vision, get to that next step, if that makes sense. Because a lot of times in my readings, I'm connecting for people around their purpose, or people will have questions about their gifts, about their ideal career. And then, of course, the second is always relationship. And yes. It's one thing to get sort of the big picture or to kind of have some ideas of next steps. It's another thing to go deeper and ask ourselves, what's really true for me? Why am I maybe not following through on this? How can I make this happen? And then that's where the other skill sets help me to help clients. that's where we go a little deeper. It's very similar, I think, to the work that you're doing, Eric, with people, where you really get in touch with your core, your really authentic self, getting in touch with boundaries. I know I saw that you had done a workshop on boundaries. A lot of my clients need help with boundaries, self-care, getting in touch with their own inner guidance. All of those kinds of things help. And then sometimes too, and there are things that have happened from the past that people maybe have gone through life where they've had to very much suppress their emotions, and they've had to kind of go along to get along, do what they have to do. And there comes a point in life where they start to awaken a little bit more, and they want to get more in touch with their soul, their spirit, what's really important to them. And maybe there have been emotions that have been suppressed for many years. So maybe emotions come up for healing or for just awareness. There may be patterns in relationship that they want to look more deeply at. Maybe I've put myself secondary to everyone else. Maybe I've done what I thought I had to do, not what I truly wanted to do. So it's those kinds of things that bubble up to the surface for a lot of people at a certain point in their lives.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I was hearing what you just said, and it's a, you really talk to me from my heart, you know, because I've been in that place before. I think we all have been in that place at some point in our life where we wonder if there is another way, where we wonder if there is another way to experience life. And for me, it was especially, I was struggling in relationship. And one of the reasons that I invited you today, it's because we have both of us. So I know Jeannette from a mastermind coaching group that we are in. We're learning about marketing and everything. And we had a few conversations about relationship. And we both have a different experience because you have been married for almost, I think, 20 years. Am I correct?
Yeah, 27 years, yes.
27 years, yeah. That's absolutely, I have an admiration for people who can be married for so long. And my experience is I have been divorced a few times. So I thought it would be great to have a conversation around relationship and spiritual growth through relationship, and maybe we can compare our experience and see how we can give insight to our audiences today. And for me, I came to realize in my life that the better, I mean, when I'm in a relationship, this is when I get to know myself. This is where I get to experience the most, you know, what you're saying, the ones, the emotions suppressed, the struggles, the triggers that we have. Because in relationship, it's like having a mirror in front of you. And then everything comes up and then you have to deal everything at once. So yeah, so I want to have your take on that, because this is really my experience is that's how we learn about ourselves through relationships. So what is your experience around that, Jeannette?
I think totally. I think exactly. Even though I've been married for so long, that's how I've had to go even deeper, even deeper. If I were in relationship, for me personally, I think it could be very easy to kind of get into a comfortable place of kind of just doing what I do, if that makes sense. But it's the triggers and the challenges and the irritations and those kind of things that can come up in relationship that make me really go, I need to really look at myself. I need to look at my communication. I need to really walk this talk. I think it's very, I don't want to say easy, but it's very easy for me anyway to just kind of go and do my meditation, do my inner work. But really where the rubber hits the road is when I have to walk the talk in relationship with whether it be my partner or other people. So I learned, yes, so much in relationship because it's right there. You can't avoid you're in relationship with someone.
It's right in front of you. I know. Yeah. So what is the biggest lesson you learned being married 27 years? What is the secret to keep a lasting relationship like that?
I don't know if that's a secret for everyone. The secret for us has been really having to put the relationship and let the relationship grow and evolve. And like we were talking earlier, I have to be willing to grow and evolve, and then he has to be willing to grow and evolve, and then together it's like the relationship is sort of this third entity or third partner in the relationship, in our couple. So if I'm willing to grow, evolve, look at myself, do my inner work, he's willing to do some part of his, that makes the relationship stronger. Mm-hmm. And it allows us to keep growing the relationship. That's what's working for us. Because if we both are very stubborn about, I'm going to do things this way, you're going to do things this way, I feel like there's no growth. And there have been points in our relationship where that has happened. Mm-hmm. And to keep staying together, we both have to be willing to go and put the relationship on a kind of equally with like, I'm here, he's here, and here's the relationship. Mm-hmm. It's all kind of like having to evolve and grow together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. So tell me one thing. If you remember a time where in your relationship you felt stuck, or you felt, oh, this is not working, and almost giving up, or something like that. If you ever experienced that, what was the turning point and the shifting point to get out of that?
There have been times definitely where it's not so much I wanted to maybe completely give up, but I have felt those fleeting feelings. I'll be honest, of course. But it started with me going, I started doing therapy years ago just on my own, but I started going to a counselor because my husband wasn't really willing to do that yet, to be honest. And then it got to a point really from frustration of communication and other things that were going on, because I think sometimes outside stressors, they come into the relationship, they come into the partnership. And that's what was going on. And I reached a point where I said, I really need you, for the sake of me and for us, to please do this if you're willing, because outside stressors are affecting you and are affecting our relationship. And it's creating resentment, it's creating frustration, and it's creating, feelings of separation. It's affecting intimacy.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. And so how your husband suddenly decided to say, okay, I'll do it.
I think it was a warming up, to be honest.
Yeah. As men, we need a warm.
I don't think it was like, yeah, okay. I think it was several conversations, and not in the heat of the moment of an argument, of like saying, I've kind of been repeating and asking for this for years, and it's gotten to a point where I really need this to happen, or because there's certain things that aren't shifting. And I think he had to really listen, not from a place of anger or feeling from a place of defensiveness, but really thinking about the importance of me and the relationship together. And that's what I think convinced him to do it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to talk about vulnerability, because we hear about everywhere, well, you have to be vulnerable, men are not vulnerable. So I'm teaching people how to be more vulnerable, and I'm trying myself to be more vulnerable, whether I am in relationship or whether it's, just in my life. And so how do you use vulnerability in your relationship to grow?
One of the things I really learned from being in couples therapy, I'll be honest with you, is I thought I was already being pretty vulnerable. I've learned how to be very vulnerable on my own inner work and going through therapy and self-work that we do in these kind of fields that we're in. But the couples therapy, or I would think working with a coach like you as well, I really actually put a mirror back on me, and I was able to see really where I wasn't allowing enough of his vulnerability. So that he needed more patience. That's one of the things I learned. I needed to be more patient. His male style of being vulnerable, he had been conditioned for so many years not to be vulnerable. And I would be getting impatient, asking and expecting his vulnerability sooner, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I learned I had to become more patient. I had to also learn that what became easier for me, because I've been doing personal growth work for probably 20 years at least, right? 22 years.
Yeah.
This was new for him. And I had to go back in time, like 22 plus years ago, and put myself in his shoes. And I was honestly judging him a bit and thinking he was just doing this out of defensiveness because he didn't want to deal with certain things. And I had to really slow myself down and go, wait a minute, I'm taking for granted things I've been doing for over 20 years. So I had to get a little bit more honest about how I was behaving.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It's almost what you're describing. It's like you created a space where you can just be patient and just be yourself, and where there's no, I see a lot of frustration. People are getting very impatient, especially women with men. Like when I coach couples, exactly the same, exactly what you described. Women say, I've been saying that over and over again, and men has to decide at one point that being vulnerable or the change is getting bigger or more important than just being defensive or just holding old stories and past stories. So it's almost like what I hear you saying is you were able to create a space for and a container for both of you to be able to still be yourself, but to go at your own timing, right?
Own timing. And I also had to really feel the pain, feel his pain, even though he wasn't maybe good at verbalizing it. And this is what couples therapy really helped me do, is in that space, I had to feel his pain of not having a lot of safe space to be vulnerable in his life. He didn't learn it from his father. He didn't learn it from his mother. He doesn't get it necessarily in his male friendships. He doesn't get it at work because he's expected to be a leader at work. And I really, when I began to really feel the pain of that, it opened me up more and allowed me to be more, I already thought I was being compassionate, but I realized I wasn't being compassionate enough, to be honest with you. I really wasn't, because I was putting a lot of expectation on him to, like you said, like other women, I've repeated this so many times, do this, do this, do this, why aren't you doing it? Yeah. And then I really had to get into the emotion and the feeling more. And from that place, then I think he slowly started to get a little bit more safe at feeling with me to be more vulnerable.
Yeah, I absolutely loved what you just said. And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It gave me goosebumps, because what you said, like when we start to feel the pain of the other person, it's when there is a shift happening. And I have this similar experience than you, but going through my divorce. My last divorce, there was a shifting point for me when, instead of trying to blame her or blame me, or, I said, oh, I should have done this, or she did that, she never considered me, whatever. At one point I decided, oh, but who am I to judge her? Who am I to judge her pain? So she's in pain as much as I am. I mean, in a different experience. Yeah. But then I could be okay and validate her experience, whatever she wanted to go through. And that was a big shifting point for me as a man, just to not be stubborn, like you said, and just wanting to be right and say, okay, I'm hurting. But we are all hurt in every situation, whether you're in a relationship or whether you go through a breakup. And for me, it was one of the best things that happened into my life to say, wow, finally she's as hurt as I am. Mm-hmm. She has the pain and she has to go through her own self-development, on stuff. Mm-hmm. And I have to do that by myself because it doesn't work when we are together. And if I may share, in the result of that, it's my last divorce, in the result of that, I could be really, as you said, compassionate with her. I could really start to be compassionate with her, but also compassionate with myself. And now I've been divorced 3 times, and my last ex-wife is the one that I have the best relationship because we have been able to express that to each other and to share our pain at some point, that we just became friends, that we just became okay not being a couple, not being together because there is more. And now we are very good friends. We were not a good couple, but very good friends. And I think it's really important that people can hear that, because it's when you put yourself in your shoes and when you feel the pain, when you're open to listen to that and validate the experience of the other person in front of you, it makes a huge, huge difference. So thank you very much for sharing that, Jeannette, because I think it's really important for people to hear that. So if I were to rebound here, what is it? Okay, what is the biggest lesson that you had in your relationship, going through your relationship or your spiritual growth? What is something that you really struck you and you still carry that with you in your life today?
I think really what you said, what we just talked about, is to open my heart to another person where I'm just so present to that person. Now, I'm used to doing that, to be honest, in my work. But in relationship, you get to know each other so well that I think there's a point at which you can take each other for granted. And what I really took from this is to open my heart and just to listen, not really with my ears, but more with my heart and my feeling, and to be just more fully present and not have my mind agenda of what we need to do with the kids or household responsibilities or roles. And I could see where I was still falling into pattern of role expectation sometimes too. And I had to strip away seeing my husband really as my husband and see him as this human being with this life, like you said, very different than mine, and this history that's very different than mine, and just see and just really be with who he is, and not put because I've known him for so long, I had all of these mental expectations I think I was putting on him. And I had to strip that away and just be with him. And the more that I do that, like when he walks in the door, if I can just be with him, I notice he softens, and that's what's creating more closeness, instead of, if this is making sense what I'm saying,
Absolutely.
Instead of like, he's my husband, now he's my children's father, now he's this, now he's that. I think over the years I had built up too much of this in my head about expecting him to be this, to be this, to be this, instead of just seeing him as another human being. You see? And I think I was very used to doing that in my work, because we do that kind of work where we're really fully present. We hear with our ears and our heart. We do a lot of hearing with our heart. And I had to look really honestly at myself where I wasn't doing enough of that with my husband.
That is really beautiful what you just shared, Jeannette. It's almost, I was hearing you saying, and I was visualizing like a loving space around yourself and around your husband.
Yeah.
And like so much space that we can breathe, even if we have struggle, even if we challenge, we can still breathe and we can still be ourselves. So it's really warming my heart. Hearing you saying that, it's just beautiful. If there is one tips or one tools or one strategy that you can help that we can help people with, to get into that space of spaciousness and being present, what would that be?
I think really first, which is a lot of what all the spiritual teachers teach, is to really practice that first with yourself. And to really have those moments in your life, in your day, the more you can work it into your daily practice of what I've really been doing more of, and I see it transferring to my relationship with my husband, is feeling into that space of love and compassion for myself. And it's not, I'm going to sit and not have thoughts, or I'm going to sit, in meditation because I meditate, and visualize, or this. It's really more dropping into that feeling, dropping into my heart and that feeling of love and compassion and nothing else. just that alone, feeling it, and letting the rest of it, like we just talked about, fall away. That's just my focus. Little moments. It doesn't even have to be a long time. If I catch myself and, with myself of those criticisms or thoughts or the stuff that goes on in the head, drop into it. And so I actually bring that feeling into my body. I feel it like in my heart, or I'll feel it like in the center of my body, like a visceral feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's helped me, is to like feel it, sometimes I think it's so easy with all the spiritual stuff to be like, I need to meditate, I need to be, this, I need to do that. And I needed to kind of strip away and just get really simple at times and just feel the feeling of love. Just feel it.
I love that. I love that. I use myself exactly the same. I do this when I feel unbalanced, whether I am in a relationship or whether I am by myself. It's always, I try to get back to the feeling of love and compassion. And I just really loved what you just shared with us. Thank you very much, Jeannette. Thank you for that. And tell me, what do you do when you don't coach and when you don't teach people? What do you like to do?
Oh, like what I do in free time? I like to go for walks a lot. When I can, I like to hike. I love walking. I love nature. I'm always reading. I love to read personal development. I know, but that's what I read, spiritual personal development stuff. I really want to get back into painting and art. I started out as an art major years ago, and that's something that I want to do more again, is more of the art and the painting, because I love that. I love to laugh. I love to watch movies. I love to do things that make me laugh. Or just, put on a YouTube video and just laugh at something,
That's great.
Those kind of things. Yeah.
That's one of the tools that I give to all of my clients. Go on YouTube, find something funny, and just raise your vibration, raise your energy just doing that, raising your vibe. So I really love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Jeannette, I really want to thank you very much. I'm really grateful that we had this conversation. I thought it was a beautiful conversation. I really love your loving presence and warming presence and what you shared with us today. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for your authenticity. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome, Eric. Thank you so much for inviting me for this. I really am honored that you asked me to join you for this interview.
Of course, it was a pleasure. So guys, this is the end of our conversation. Until next week, don't forget one thing: when you open your heart, you have all the love you need. So then seek for joy, be at peace, and we'll see you for another conversation next week. Thank you.